U.S. Department of Education set now to lay off 1,300 people. I don't know as a percentage, Hannah Claire, do you know what is that like as a percentage of their?
Around 40%. I think they have just over 5,000 employees.
Okay. So just over 40%. And this is news breaking after yesterday, where they basically told everyone, don't come into work tomorrow.
Promises made, promises kept.
Another one, right? He brought on Linda McMahon to shut it down, right? And she did. And the big point, as Nadio pointed out in chat, we didn't even have the Department of Education until almost the 80s. And by the way, our test scores have not improved since then.
Yeah.
Like the only thing that's gone up is our spending per student. Firings were announced Tuesday as administration decried how detached from Americans live. Wait, how detached from how Americans live? No American cares about the Department of Education going away. If you go to any American, anyone, and you show them that chart, that if somebody in chat can find the chart and give me the link, I'll put it up. The chart that shows that the creation of the Department of Education and the United States on math and science scores, they are practically inverse. Like, they have not helped American students one iota, and yet they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars. Oh no, by the way, they're also peddling a lot of that woke gender ideology crap on your students.
Yeah, we've got like Common Core, we've got No Child Left Behind. Nobody really supports that if they're sane. And also literacy. Literacy is falling in the United States. I can't remember what the last measure was of our literacy rate, but it's much different than it was in the 90s.
Yeah. This article mentions that the Department of Education is apparently still going to oversee student loans, which to me is like, I want to see the chart of the creation of
that's a whole nother debacle.
And the complete explosion of student loans and the student loan debt issue. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I don't understand why we can offer student loan debt forgiveness, but we don't just stop issuing student loans.
Yeah, that's a great point. There is a student debt. I don't like to use the word crisis, but it is a massive problem.
Apocalypse? You want to try that one?
No, because that's even bigger than crisis.
End of the world?
No.
I think it's really, I really do think it's that serious, partially because even though it's used as a political leverage point, I remember someone being like, but Bernie Sanders says free college. And Joe Biden can promise it and then turn around and be like, even though I didn't have the authority, the Republicans are the bad guys. Like, they use it as this political tennis ball to bounce back and forth, but they still issue the loans. Schools are crazy overfunded, and it just impacts our young people who are going further and further into debt for this education that doesn't even prove to be worth it. But that's separate from like issues with public high schools. The other thing that I found interesting in this article from The Guardian is that apparently the Department of Education is going to cancel leases on buildings in New York, Boston, Chicago, and Cleveland.
Good.
With some major cities.
Yeah. Good. It says that today's reduction in force reflects our commitment to efficiency, accountable. This is from Linda McMahon, and ensuring the resources are directed to where they matter most, the students, parents, and teachers. Look, even if you think that having some sort of oversight, some sort of federal oversight, right? If you believe in that, or not even federal, but just, some sort of oversight, like, here's all you need to know. If you believe in that, wouldn't it be more effective if that was at the state level and you had, students in Wisconsin have unique efficiencies and deficiencies compared to students in California or Texas or New York for that matter. Not just the fact that half your student class speaks Spanish exclusively, but there's all sorts of other things that people in Wisconsin need more than people in Michigan or even Minnesota who share our borders. So isn't it better to let the states handle it? Now, obviously, we could argue about the states sucking rear end at doing that too, but at least they know they're closer to the people that need it. So I feel like even if you're a Department of Education fan, you should understand that this is better. That
it should be a hybrid. It should be a hybrid system. So there should be federal standards, but the problem is the federal standards are retarded. They've been watered down massively. So have federal standards that say, look, a certain number of the students in this district need to have a certain degree of literacy, certain mathematical skills, stuff like that.
That's racist.
Let the states and municipalities handle it. And
that's
if
a big
efficient. Then you go after them. Until then, let them do what they want to do.
There was an article about the Chicago school system that was like appalling. Like something I forget if chat helps me. Like it was like the illiteracy rate of Chicago schools was like 30%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like tell me,
it might have been higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, like tell me again why we need the Department of Education. Illiteracy.
It didn't make sense.
1 in 5 Illinois adults is illiterate.
There you go.
1 in 4 in Cook County.
25% of them are illiterate. I mean,
they're incapable of assigning their own name.
Yeah. I mean, what are we doing?
The Department of Education has done a very, very good job in SHECOM.
Yeah.
It's done a good job of keeping people weak and dependent. Like that's the problem. I don't really know what the objective is other than compliance. You see this argument sometimes when school choice stuff comes up. West Virginia has the Hope Scholarship, which is the big school choice program. Arizona also had a big school choice initiative that got fought out in court. And you'll get teachers unions that are like, you can't do this. You're taking money away from teachers and you're making their difficult job already harder. And, I went to public school. I had some teachers that were, lovely. I had some teachers that were awful. And ultimately, I think the teachers would agree that if the money didn't have to trickle down to them from the highest ranks of government, they probably would have been better able to serve their students who they had daily contact with. Like having a giant bureaucracy doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
We need to shock and awe the audience and also both of you. According to the 2023 Chicago Public Schools State Report Card, only 12.2% of low-income third graders were reading at grade level.
Said another way, 88% of them weren't.
Yeah.
But let's keep the system exactly the same. This is going so well.
Yeah, this is H. Myers shared this. H.M. Myers shared this. Education spending doubled, stagnant test scores. So here you have a chart. I love charts. Here you have the blue line on top is spending. Up to $500 billion. No, wait. How do I read this? This must be per student. So close to $11,500 per student. This is constant $2,008. So up to almost $12,000 per student. And our test scores have not done anything. This is 1970 when in the 70s when the Department of Education, I think 79 was Department of Education, late 70s, early 80s.
And even if
they haven't gone anywhere.
70s. Even if you adjust it for inflation, it's still a massively larger amount per pupil, and it hasn't done anything.
Yeah,
who would have known that paying administrators and principals more money wouldn't magically trickle down? It's funny, the liberals believe in trickle down, but only for education. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I got them. Yeah, the Department of Education needs to go. I am not against giving state level funding, though, especially for people that want to homeschool. Mm-hmm. I love seeing some mentions around homeschooling and stuff like that.
Did you see? Apparently, in I believe which state was it? I can't remember. Microschooling is actually illegal in the state of Iowa. Yeah, if you have more than 4 kids that are not related to each other and you're schooling them, it's actually illegal.
That's so stupid.
And on the second offense, it's actually a felony.
It's crazy. I mean, there are certain states where they don't want you to have magnet schools or charter schools. Like there are states where it's very difficult to open any kind of private school because they want you to stay stuck with the public school model so intensely. There's a whole other argument here about states that require, vaccinations for your kid to go to public school.
Yeah.
But, well, this is like an issue. This is a big issue in West Virginia because there's no religious exemption. And so you have to send your kid to school. It doesn't have that many. They just started introducing magnet school, charter school options, but also to go to public school, you have to do this thing. So it's like, I mean, it reminds me that great example is always when the government was like, you have to raise your drinking age, and certain states were like, we don't want to, and they're like, okay, no more federal funding, but also you have to do, like, this seems like a way of really controlling people, but in a way that doesn't serve anything and just allows the government to hold on to as much money as possible. If it's really about the students being able to say, like, hey, parents who are actively involved in their kids' education, here's money to make that happen, or to open a newer or smaller school in your area or whatever. Like, if we know all the time that small classrooms produce better results for students, if we know the ideal scenario is like a teacher with one-on-one connections with students, why would we continue to be like, well, so we'll go to the federal government, and then we'll go to the state government, and then we'll go to the county, and then, like, before you even get to the people who are interacting with the students? It seems crazy.
Well, isn't it? Go ahead, Styx.
Okay. It's like some things, it's perfectly fine to have a collective atmosphere. Like, hey, read this book, write a report on it, and then you grade the report. But for some things, it makes sense to have a lowered workload for the person that's actually teaching them. But I was mystified when I saw that article that I reported on in the state of Iowa, that having more than 4 unrelated individuals that you were teaching was actually literally illegal. And on the first offense, it's just a fine. But if you do it again, it's a fucking felony.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
How does this make sense?
Well, because they want your kids in school. I mean, I remember talking about this all the time.
More kids in school. You said your matriculation rates, right? Go ahead. I'm going to steal your thunder. It's matriculation rates,
and it's also, it might vary a little bit by state, but I know for a lot of states, one of the reasons that they give, like, attendance awards, or, like, they're very strict about punctuality, you have to be on time, isn't about, like, oh, well, showing up to school on time is linked to better academic performance. It's no. We have to report how many kids are in the building at a certain time. And at the end of the year, that dictates how much money we get, how consistently the same number of kids are showing up. Like, it's not about the kids' outcome at all. It's about the monies that they can get from leveraging that data.
You know what they do in the state of Vermont? This is a little known fact. They'll put as many people as possible on special ed so that they can get special ed funding from the state and from the federal government. And then when you hit senior year, they'll kick you off of it so that you can't draw any sort of.
Oh, yeah, that's demonic. Yeah, that is that's very, very likely. It makes perfect sense. I'm a big fan of homeschooling. I'm a big fan of states being like, if your school system sucks, right now they get to say, well, the federal government, now we get to vote for people based on what their opinions are on the school system. Like, that is going to, right now I'm getting sick of abortion or no abortion. Like, we have a Supreme Court, race here in Wisconsin on April 1st, and it's literally all the ads are. It's like, boy, sure would be nice to know what they think about education and what they think of Wisconsin schools and, improving those and having a plan for that. So, I think pushing it back to the states, I wish we weren't getting taxed at all for it, but pushing it back to the states seems like a good middle ground.